Ink samples are small, easy, fun, and a great way to try out an ink before emotionally committing to an entire bottle. And there are a few tips and tricks that can make filling your pen with one of these a little bit easier. And I'm going to share some with you today. So the ink samples that we sell are 2 ml, so they are not full. So in order to actually fill your pen with one, you're going to need to get that thing all the way down. Taking the grip section from your pen off of the barrel and inserting it with the converter down into the ink sample is a good way to get started. However, the level of the ink might actually be too low for the entirety of the nib and the feed to be submerged. We could probably get some ink in there. Let's try. Okay, so there's a little bit in there, not a lot. What can make this a lot easier is if you tilt the ink sample so that more of the feed or the nib is submerged and you will get more of a fill. So let's try that again, but with it slightly tilted. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the ink bottle with a couple fingers and then stabilize the converter with some other fingers. I'm going to go ahead and eject the ink back into the vial, and then what I want to do is position the nib and feed so that the feed is at the bottom. That generally brings more ink into the reservoir, be it a internal piston or a converter like in this case. And I'm going to slowly draw ink up, and you can already see that I'm getting a little bit more in there. And honestly, for this particular converter, that's more or less a full fill, so I would be fine with that. You can try it a couple more times if you want to, but you're not going to get that amount with it just submerged like that because the ink level is just not going to be high enough. And every nib and feed is different. Some of them are longer than others. Some of them are shorter. So with a shorter one, something like the Lamy feeds and nibs is shorter than, in this case, the Pilot Explorer. So this one might actually be able to get more if you just go vertically down, but still, slanting definitely helps. So that's the standard way to fill a cartridge converter pen or a internal piston pen with an ink sample. That tilt and fill method, holding and stabilizing the sample itself with one, couple fingers, and then holding the converter with the others and getting that done. However, if you don't want to fill that way, if you want to kind of bypass the whole nib feed saturation thing, you can go that route too and just fill your converter by itself. Now, there are a couple ways to do that using a sample vial. The first one would be to just try to get your converter down into the ink and suck it up. That can be a little bit tricky because these things are not as long as they are when they're attached to the grip section, obviously. So you can get your hands kind of inky because you're going to be touching right at the tip of that bottleneck. And with this Pilot converter, the Con 40 here, it is significantly shorter than, say, the Lamy converter. So this is going to fall almost all the way down into that. So not super ideal. However, there are a couple things you can do. For example, use a syringe. If I wanted to fill my converter without dunking it down into the sample vial, I could simply get some ink out of here, insert it right into the converter, and fill that up. However, you don't need to do that. You could fill directly using the converter and the ink sample, which I will do now. In this case, I have less ink in here, and that's just going to be the case. Once you fill using one sample, which again is 2 mils, that will fill a standard converter and then some. So we're working with the and then some right now. So if I wanted to fill this directly, I could get this all the way down in there, but I'm just twisting this right now. I can't actually get a grip on the converter itself. So one trick that Brian Goulet taught me was to take a pencil. Well, usually you can get the eraser down in there. And once that's done, you can operate the piston without having to touch any of the inky parts. All right, and then I'll remove faithful pencil, and there you go. So that's full. Now, when you do this, if you fill the converter directly, either with a syringe or just dunking it into an ink reservoir of some kind, you will get less ink than you would if you filled it traditionally using the nib and the feed, submerging it and all that, because honestly, there is a ton of ink that can fit up in the feed situation here. So you will get less of an overall fill doing it this way, but it can be done. It's maybe slightly more clean if you do it very, very neatly, but anyway, it's an option, it's there. Now, if you have had your initial fill, you have used your sample's worth of ink pretty much, and there's just a little bit left in there, using an ink syringe is a great way to get that last little bit. And then this can go into your pen via internal piston or converter or vacuum, whatever. You can just squirt this right into your pen. All right, so that's basically it. The thing to remember is that when you tilt it and fill, it helps out a ton. And if you are looking to do it in other ways, the syringe is a big help. These are super affordable, come in a pack of 2. And if you have a bunch of ink samples and you need to store them, we also sell an ink sample vial holder as well. So thank you for stopping by. Hope you had fun. Talk to you soon.